Welcome, everybody, to the Trainer's Mail podcast, episode 4. My name is Blake, and I'm joined again by my lovely co-hosts, Mitch
Good evening.
and Jordan.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Really quite like a delayed Jordan hello.
The old classic. Today, we've got some tournaments. The online tournaments are rolling in because we have Temporal Forces live on live. And so the online tournaments are streaming in. We've got 5 different ones to look at. We're going to look at them in order as they were attended and run in, so that we've got sort of a timeline of how the online meta is sort of adapted as we've been going through. And we'll start off with the Ditto Forces number 1, Temporal Forces Legal.
Yeah, just quickly before you start, we've got obviously lots of tournaments that are being played, but we're pretty much just looking at the ones that have like 140 players or more. So like obviously there's a bunch of players playing like 60, 50 player tournaments, but you know when you've got 150 players, that's a pretty good representation of how the field's going to look in reality. So that's the reason that we've picked these 5. They'll have 140 players or more as of the time of recording.
Yep. And this one's spicy right off the start because out of our top 8 in this tournament, 3 of them are Arctina, and all my testing up until like we actually got the cards on live had led me to believe that Arctina was actually not as good as I first thought it would be, but it's actually tested itself to be pretty well, at least in this particular field.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's there's how many of them? There's 3 of them, but none of them really performed overly well once they got to top cut. So there's 2 of them that lost in top 8, and then 1 made it through to top 4. But no one playing Arctina got through to the finals. So first place was Lugia playing against Arctina.
More Luigi's action. Luigi's still doing strong.
He's popping off. Then there's a Chen Pao Baxcalibur playing against like an Ancient Box, which the Ancient Box won. Snorlax versus Arctina. Arctina did the righteous thing and beat Snorlax still for us, which is fantastic. And then Tina Lost Box versus Arctina, which Arceus ended up losing. So it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to that field. But there's a couple of choices, a couple of matchups there where maybe you wouldn't have expected the outcome that you got.
Yeah, Snorlax taking the L to Arctina is quite surprising to me. Is there anything special about this Arctina? Is it just the Squovit? Is it the Squovit tech that we're talking about?
There's a few things that this does really good into Snorlax. Squovit is probably the main one because Squovit means you can't win the game by just sitting there forever. Another thing it's got going for it is Giratina v Shred. Shred just means that you don't care about any effects on like Mimikyu or anything like that. So you've got a consistent Pokemon that can just take a prize every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's playing a few switching cards. It's got looking like a switch at a Jet Energy. So not a high amount, but enough to... and a Turo, actually, which is pretty good.
Yeah, Turo's great to avoid Ericas.
And the final thing it's got going for, which is a card that I think is really good into Stall, is actually Eri. Despite being a really good card in Stall, it's also really good against Stall because you can just discard their counter catches and then half their deck doesn't work because that's the whole idea, is to play your item cards to annoy your opponent. And it doesn't work if you discard them.
Yeah, that'd be great. You've attached on the first turn to like an Arceus V, and then, they instant charge, they get like their Forest Seal Stone down and get a couple Snorlaxes, and then you're like, alright, cool, they've got all their cards, Arc V-Stars down, get your DTE V-Star, like Starbirth for the Eri, make sure you've got your Giratina, or what have you, another Arceus, whatever you prefer, probably the Tina for the Mimikyu out, and then you can use the tutored out Eri to hit the counter catches out of their hands, before you actually take your first knockout. And then you've actually got a couple turns grace while they're trying to reestablish their hand size and get out more Snorlaxes before you actually start having to worry about finding those switches out. Like
actually also... Yeah, and there's another switching card that I forgot to mention in this list, which is the Iron Leaves EX is kind of a switching card as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was about to mention that.
You can Iron Leaves as a switching card, take a prize, and then you can theoretically Turo it if it gets like...
You do lose the grass off of it, though. It's a bit expensive,
but like... Yeah, but you could theoretically Turo it and then go into it again later. I mean, that's at the cost of a Turo, so it's probably better used somewhere else. But
yeah, you'd probably just pass. And
there's a few Yeah, there's quite a few pretty nice.
It's got moves. It's got moves. Okay,
options
so
in
this
test
matchup isn't
stuff.
actually as bad as I thought it would be. So yeah, okay, I can see that taking that matchup.
The thing that I actually think is really interesting about all these Arctina lists is how, like, obviously we've got lots of information from Japan to make these deck lists as consistent as possible, as soon as possible, but pretty much all three of these Arctina lists are 56, 57 cards the same. There's two Churros and one Sharon. So
There's a Lumo
Churro,
V in one of
obviously.
these.
Yeah, that's true. Lost City and Collapse Stadium are the stadiums that seem to be of choice. One has Lost City, one has Collapsed, the third has both. So they're pretty much locking down on a specific deck list already. The only card that I'm seeing that's a bit of a wild card is like Capturing Aroma, which is in one of these.
Yeah.
And there's a Gardenia's Vigor as well, which is not an awful card to have, but it's not the first supporter I'd be playing.
It's the out. It's the out if you miss turn one
Melanie.
attach. Yeah. If you miss turn one attach on Arc V, then it's like the only way you can cheat an attachment to be able to still use Trinity Nova, because Melanie and Raihan is gone. The other thing that's sort of changed since we've like got those first results from Japan is they've all seemed to be agreed that 2 area is correct in Arctina, which is gross, but seemingly correct.
They've all locked in on it. They've all gone, you know what's going to work for Arctina? We can't judge path anymore, but we can judge our opponent, hope they brick, and then area them out of any useful cards that they might have left over. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how that progresses going forward. Because if Arctina is a strong contender in this metagame, then that's going to be something that we're going to need to watch out for.
The other thing that's surprising about this top 8 for me is the success of Lost Tina, because that was an archetype that, whilst in Japan was still getting results here and there, was something we were on the fringe about because it lost the ability to Roxanne Path and get their opponents out of the games towards the end. So there was a major win condition that got taken away from them, but they're still doing pretty well. They got second here, only taking the L to Lugia in the end, beating 2 Arctina on their way to the finals, which is odd because I feel like in the past, Lost Tina used to take the L in that matchup, generically speaking. I feel like Arctina was favoured in that matchup in the past.
Yeah. Wait, are we talking Arctina or
Arctina into Lost Tina? I feel like Arctina was favoured.
Right.
But
yes, it definitely was for a while. I don't know if anything has changed to make that not the case anymore, because the main reason why it used to be favored is because it just had the ability to boss like easier and earlier and on command, whereas Lost Tina kind of just randomly got to gust on the turn when it gets given all the combo pieces, and also it's really hard to do so when you're being IO'd or judged or whatever from Arctina. And the other main thing as well is that what was it? Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
The thing that I'm noticing is that there's obviously one card missing from old Arctina lists that would have stopped Giratina from knocking out an Arceus or Arctina, and that is V-Guard Energy. There's no V-Guard Energy in any of these deck lists.
Yeah.
The deck that played in top 4 had Radiant Gardevoir, so there is that Loving Veil ability.
Radiant Gardevoir.
Yeah, so there's that Radiant Gardevoir there, but you know, that doesn't always come off. The V-Guard Energy would have been the card because, you know, you can chuck the V-Guard on and then you can guarantee that Pokemon is never getting one-shot by a Giratina V-Star unless they start
get one-shot in return.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I always thought it was the fact that the Arceus's powered up their Tinas faster than the Lost version did, and so they just got the tempo on Giratinas, and then the Arceus's attacking were largely unfazed by the half hits from like Cramorants and stuff like that, because they could play cards like Cheren's Care or Turo nowadays in some of those lists.
Those are all very true. I can tell you for sure that the matchup is still definitely going to end up being Tina favored.
Yeah, especially if they try and adapt to a metagame that might have more Lost Tina in it if it starts to succeed more. But the overall winner here was Lugia. Lugia again.
Yeah, Lugia can't be stopped. It's incredible. It's the greatest deck that the world has ever seen. And I'm very happy about it, as you can hear in my voice. I'm so excited for a field of people hoping for the best to get their Archeopses in the discard pile. But like
why don't you like Lugia?
I don't know, man.
You don't like Snorlax.
I think
don't
it's
like-
the remnants of old Lugia
Yeah,
leaking into his opinion of new Lugia, which is like
It's
nothing
bias,
like the old bias is seeping
it's
in.
just old bias, yeah. But I mean, the new Lugia does have something to help it against Arctina and Lost Tina.
Mhm.
And that's that Mist Energy, obviously not helping against Arctina because Arceus has already used its V-Star power, but Mist Energy probably being a pretty significant deal in this matchup against Lost Tina, as well as one copy of V-Guard Energy.
Yeah, coming
So
up clutch to
you
save
put-
that one V-Star that gets into play every game.
Yep, exactly. You put those two on the Lugia, and Giratina cannot touch you. So definitely a good card to have included there. And like Lost Tina struggles into Lugia regardless. Like
that's
it's
been
difficult.
historically accurate, I feel like.
It's a difficult matchup, but I think that with those two cards, it's probably.
Snorlax is
I'm
so
not gonna
hard
say
for
impossible.
Lost Zone
Yeah,
decks
but-
to deal with as well, and now the new addition of Chinchino, like, it's such a good answer to their two prizes. It's like, you have a really efficient response with Cramorant, but these days, like, the Lost Tina deck's only playing, like, one copy of Cramorant, so they have to super it if they want to reuse it. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Lugia is playing 4 Minchinos now because it's so good. It has that call for family attack to get into their 3 Chinchinos easier. So like the only 2 prizes that's ever on the field is Lugia, and then they protect it with V-Guard, and if they did use Luminion, they can probably get into the Collapse to get rid of it before it comes up, relative to the late game.
And the other thing that Lugia has going for it in that matchup especially is that it has 5 Gusting cards. It's got 3 Boss and 2 Serena. So like, it's taken a knockout that it wants to pretty much every single time. So I'd feel pretty confident playing Lugia into that particular matchup.
It's only 3 guaranteed bosses because the Serenas are only like a pseudo boss. Only half the time.
Yeah,
you're
but I
using
would-
it as a boss, and only half the time it's even
I'll say
available
this
to
much:
be used as boss.
Serena is being used as boss on the only time when you really care about using boss, which is to knock out a 2 prizer. So, like in that matchup against Lost Tina.
That specific
Oh,
matchup,
yes.
it gets
Yeah.
to work as well as it's going to. But yeah, like
I have a question about the Lugia into Tina matchup because it's definitely historically been favored to Lugia. But what's stopping Tina from doing the classic Gren into Sableye play to kill
Mist
double
Energy.
Archeops?
Right now, you can use 2 Archeops on your first turn, or you can manually attach them onto an Archeops each, and then you have to Rad Gren twice because
Right.
Mist Energy blocks Sableye's attack. So that's what Mist Energy
I
is used for in that
completely forgot
matchup.
that it works on the bench.
Yep, it works on
I
the
mean,
bench.
also Requiem.
Yeah, and also blocks Requiem. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So
why
there's
they play
3.
Mist
There's
Energy,
one for
for
each
Archeops,
to
one for
protect.
Lugia.
There's one to
Yeah.
protect
Yeah.
each Archeops and one for the Lugia. So Giratina has no great outs to do much of anything apart from maybe kill 1 Archeops at a time with Shred. But like V-Guard works on benches as well. So like you could almost chuck a. They'd have to go for. It's a shame there's no 2 V-Guard because then you could use an Archeops to accelerate a V-Guard and a Mist onto each one, and then there's no way for like Tina to have a cheap way to take it out in one shot.
I got bad news for you. Blake.
Oh no, Shred
Do you
goes
know what
through.
Shred does?
Shred goes through. Never mind. I'm bad. Keep going.
Hey,
Okay.
if they use double boss to kill 2,
Yeah, double boss to kill
Archeops,
2
this is
Archeops
a-
with Shred, then they deserve it. They can have those 2
And
prizes.
and they're giving up 2 prizes each turn when they attack with Shred because Lugia,
Lugia's not going to
even
Yeah.
with 1 Archeops in play, you could probably pull off a 220 attack.
Yeah, you've got enough
damage attack.
You've
either
got
with
enough
Minchino
energies that
or-
aren't double turbo in there to accelerate like 2 non-double turbos and then a manual attach each turn to pull off like the Tempest dive each turn to knock out the Giratinas. And yeah,
And that's one of the big things I think that Lugia now has going for it is that if you want to knock out the Archeops, you can, but like Chinchino and Lugia and Snorlax are all hitting 220, 180, or 140 plus. So there's never going to be an attacker that you can afford to leave to take a turn to knock out Archeops just with an attack. So you'd need to do it you'd need to cleanly knock out them both.
yeah. And with
Yeah,
Mist
realistically.
Energy, that's just not a clean option anymore. You can't do the 9 and 9 and 6 and 6 and be like, perfect math, beautiful, goodbye Archeops. Mist Energy does it all.
Also, sorry. I was just gonna say we also aren't used to seeing Chinchino in this thick account, right? Like the one that won this Ditto tournament is playing 4-3 line, which I think is the thickest line I've ever seen in all of your list.
Yeah, like I think the one that won was 3-3. So like they've only bumped up on the Minchino because a lot of the time the first one uses Call for Family and then gets knocked out. And so you don't really get to use the full 3 Chinchinos when that happens because this deck's still not running super
One
yet.
definitely played 4 on my screen.
No, the one that won the previous
the one we
Japanese
talked about
tournament.
from
Oh, that one
from the
right,
Luigi's
right.
Mansion episode.
Yeah,
Fukuoka.
So you chuck
Right.
you chuck your gift energy on your Minchino on the first turn, grab 2 more, and then they knock out, and you draw more cards, and you've got extras floating around.
Yeah, or you can grab your Luigi if
definitely
you whiffed it
efficient.
off the first turn as well. So it solves a lot of issues for the early game of Lugia, apart from finding the Archeops. But we've got plenty of tournaments to get to, so we'll move on from Ditto Forces because there are plenty of spicy results here. Next up, we've got the Tournament of Doom, the first one with Temporal Forces legal. This is one that's way more up our alley in terms of stuff we like to see in a tournament because the finals is all Chen Power.
Yeah, it's just Chen City here. We've got 2 Chen Powers, we've got an Arceus deck, which is interesting. We've got an Espathra Xatu deck, which is really cool.
I love
There's
this.
2 Charizards, another Lugia, and another Tina Lost Box.
Yeah.
But yeah, the final was Chen Pao versus Chen Pao, and the deck lists they're pretty similar to like I was saying, they're all pretty similar to ones from Japan, and we're getting to the point now where these Chen Pao lists are pretty locked down.
They're getting more refined.
There's not too much different between them.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we see like 2 Chen Power and 2 Iron Hands, or 2 Chen Power plus another like non-EX attacker like the Kyogre from Silver Tempest in its place. But this one's also playing 3 Super Rod as well, which is a higher count than I feel like is normal.
I will. I'll say this much: they're both doing the Chen Pao thing, but I guess the one that I'm not sure which one's the winner here. Actually, I've just got to double check.
The first one is DNTTXT.
Yeah, who's the one that's playing all of the Cypher Maniacs?
Second place. Second place, yeah.
Because the second place list is doing the thing that I first tried to do with Chen Pao when I was playing it, and that was Cypher Maniac plus Barrel plus every like good tech card that you can play. So Kyogre, cancelling Cologne, Prime Catcher, that kind of stuff.
All that stuff I was talking about earlier today is embodied in this list. It's all power cards and way too many Cypher Maniacs. I thought Jordan was having a go at me for playing 2, and this person is rocked up with 3. They have no regard for the law.
And it's so funny because both lists are very similar, but obviously Cypher Maniac just gives this deck so much high roll potential. And it's because it's got that
0 in the other.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's got that high roll potential, and it didn't high roll. It's ended up losing to the consistency. So, I mean, take from that what you want. But apart from that, like apart from those 3 cards, like we were like. In all seriousness, looking at this list, they replaced the 3 Cypher Maniac with an Iono and 2 Pokegear, and that's pretty much it. So
yeah, Pokegear having better synergy with the heavy Pokestop, so you don't have to worry about discarding them as often off of the Pokestop.
So pretty solid choices.
Irida and Code Breaking effectively do the same thing. They both just get you 2 cards that you want to your hand.
But you're only limited to 4 Irida in a deck. And sometimes you wish you were playing 7.
Now I can play 7 of them.
How do you want to play 7 Irida? Do you want to play 7 Irida by playing 3 Code Breaking, or by playing Pokegears to draw into your 4 Iridas more often?
Yeah, and also, like, heavy support account, no Power Pad, no Pokegear. It's, like, hypothetically better at the same time as it is worse, because, like, the low roll off of Pokestop hitting your supporters is so much worse in this deck because there's no recovery for it. But on the other hand, you just like concealed cardsing or using Barrel to Industrious Incisors into your supporters is way more likely in this build. And so those pop-off turns go so much easier because if you hit the Cypher Maniacs off of like the Barrel first, then you can concealed cards into the Cypher Maniacs to get like your Prime Catcher cancelling Cologne on a Manaphy against like Charizard or something. And then you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Talking of Charizard, let's jump and talk about those because we don't have huge amounts of time. I want to talk about these. So these 2 lists I think are the same. So I would imagine that these two
I
players
just saw
are
a
both.
Ghastly.
Yeah, so I was about to get there, right? These two lists are exactly the same, and they've gone, you know what? We want to beat Stall 100% of the time, and Minior is not our speed. So we're going to play a 1-0-1
Out
line
of control.
of Nightgate Gengar, which means that once during your turn, you can switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. They're just going to throw up
It's
their attacker
free
every
real
turn.
estate.
They just chuck down the Gengar in that matchup, and they've just gone, you know what? This is gonna work. We're just gonna go one Charizard, like an attacker that can knock out the what do you call it? The purple boy, the oh my
Mimikyu?
god, I can't believe it. Mimikyu. Thank you so much for telling me that. One attacker that can knock out a Mimikyu, one attacker that can knock out everything else, and a Ghastly, and then we can just fire the Pokemon into the active whenever they're required.
Two brave heroes with a penchant for Charizard and a vendetta for Stall have taken it upon themselves to single-handedly make sure that they don't make it into the top 8 of this tournament. And it seems, if I didn't get that wrong, that they did a perfect job, because there is no Stall in top 8 in this particular tournament, and they must be largely responsible. It'd be funny if I look at their matches, they didn't even pair it. Yeah, this one didn't pair it. So Scott D didn't pair in his matches, didn't pair a single Stall with his Gengar.
And Red Octane didn't either.
None of them played it. That's so funny.
Well, that just proves how strong the deck is. They played a 58 card deck and they still
both
came
came to top 8. Yep,
Out of
in a
control.
150 player tournament, so you can't complain about
You've
that.
got to imagine
Maybe,
with a deck that this random, that they have to be friends or something.
Oh yeah,
because
there's no way people just randomly decide to both play a 101 Gengar line
over
That's
the
just a little
mini,
bit much.
like
Yeah, exactly. What a baller move.
The funny thing about Gengar is, like, on top of it being like the perfect out to Snorlax, like the most played form of like annoying control for Charizard that it can't deal with, it also doesn't die to like one of the main attackers of Pidgeot control, the other one that uses Snorlax, because it's got 130 HP. So you can't just blustery win this with Pidgeot EX either, with the DTE on it. It just whiffs. So you have to two-shot this with Pidgeot control, unless you're killing this right at the end of the game with Radzard. So it's just so effective, but so unnecessary, it feels like.
It's just so funny. But like I'm just gonna move on to the other two really interesting decks that made this top 8.
Yeah.
And it sucks because all of the really interesting decks lost in top 8. So it take that as you will. We've got an Arceus deck and we've got an Espathra one. I'm going to talk about Arceus first because it's just listed as Arceus.
Oh.
But what it actually is it's Arceus with Aerodactyl V-Star, which is such a, it's a throwback big time to when Lugia was at the top of its game. But the thing that I really, really like is that it's playing one copy of the new Memory Dive Relicanth, which means that each of your evolved Pokemon can use attacks from its previous evolutions. Aerodactyl V has Rock Crush, 120 damage, discard an energy from your opponent's active.
Gross.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So you can just sit there and remove energy with a 260 HP Aerodactyl. You can churro it away if you need to. It's got Lost City. It's got the barrel Squirtle. It's so full on. And it's got a copy of Salvatore, which is just so crazy. Search your deck for a card that has no abilities and evolves from one of your Pokemon. Put it onto that Pokemon and evolve it, then shuffle your deck.
Oh my god, this activates the turn 2 V-Star, Ancient Star.
You can legit like turn 1 chuck this into the active if you're going second.
Well,
the Aerodactyl comes in play.
They play Jet? Yeah, they play 2 Jet too. There's too much gas in one list. That's out of control.
Turns off all of the stuff. So a very, very, very cool concept. And it's the type of thing where if I was still making videos, I would put this on the channel because this is nuts.
It's the type of deck creativity.
I was just going to quickly point out that they did not pair against Lugia in this tournament.
As is the way, of course.
But you love to see creative deck lists succeed, even if they didn't get the matchup to pay off. I love to see the success. For Crushing Hammers as well. This was out of control, just going straight for, you're not consistently, Charizard's was 6 energy, no chance, mate. You're going to run out of energies to Infernal Rain onto your Zards. You're going to have to get out, 3 just to make sure there's energy on the board. The only people they lost to were Charizards, funnily enough, but there were 2 other top 8 Charizards in Swiss, so... That's
And then they
crazy.
lost to Chien-Pao and cut.
Yeah, lost to Chen-Pao. Yeah, that makes sense because Chen-Pao doesn't care about losing its energy. And then the most spicy thing here, which is crazy because we've got 2 Gengar Charizards and Arceus Aerodactyl with the Salvatore tech. We've got Espatra. If you've been looking at some Japanese results, this deck is not as surprising, but a lot of you are going to be like, what set did Espatra even come out in? It came out in the side set, Paldean Fates, and it has the ability Dazzling Gaze. It's a Terra Grass type. As long as this Pokemon's in the active, attacks used by your opponent's active cost 1 colorless more, and then its attack Cyball for 1 Psychic does 30 plus 30 for each energy attached to both Pokemon. So its ability incentivizes more energy on the active, and then the attack rewards you for having more energies attached to both. And then paired with the Xatu, that's long been asking for a partner, can accelerate those psychics to the Espatra.
Yeah. And it's also playing Pokemon League headquarters, so all basic Pokemon need 2 extra energy to attack into it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's got the Rigid Band. It's playing the Rigid Band, so it's actually a 290 HP stage 1.
I forgot this card was here. Oh my god.
It's got so much cool little tech going on. And the list is also playing a 1/1 Bennett Lion as well.
Yeah,
so it's also
okay.
got the opportunity to Everlasting Darkness to prevent item cards from being played. So an interesting choice.
I'm sad that this deck isn't playing Salvatore, so you can turn 1 ban it.
Oh, ugh.
Yeah, that's gross. I think I've seen a little bit of noise on Twitter about people trying to make a Xatu or Gardevoir Bannet work with turn 1 Salvatore into Bannet, enabling all of that shenanigans. Obviously, because turn 1 item lock is really oppressive, historically speaking.
Imagine Lugia trying to set up without items.
Yeah, they'd have to Ultra Ball double Archeops on the first turn of the game before they get to Supporter. It's not happening. Let's see, what did Espatra go down to? Lost Tina. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like it doesn't seem like historically a great matchup for a deck that has a whole bunch of low HP Pokemon.
And for a deck that has no history of being in any tournament.
Well, no, but like it's if the sentence that I said was with low HP Pokemon on the bench.
Yeah.
But Espatra plus the headquarters means that Cram's attack costs 5 energy and it still gets to use it for free.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, the Flittle. Okay, the Flittle they're using's only got 50 HP, but it still goes down to it. Like 2 of them will still go down to a Sableye, and there's no Jirachi in the list, so they probably got caught out there with a bad matchup. And they also don't have too much issue trying to find extra energy to comply with Espatra, its ability. Rigid Band makes it so that they have to Lost Requiem, but there's no missed energy going on here, so there's nothing stopping that from happening. And, rogue decks like this, if the main strategy, falls through, then sometimes the decks just sort of crumble.
It just
especially with stuff like
yeah.
Roxanne, just like nerfing the hand. If there's no psychic energies to enable Xatu, then the deck probably just doesn't draw cards anymore. But very spicy, something you want to see in the metagame to liven things up, keep everybody thinking. Otherwise, it's stuff we've seen before. Nothing too crazy going on for Minchino yet. Largely the same here on the Lugia side. More V-Guard and less missed energy in this one, and 4 double turbo. So actually, 1 or 2 more energy in this Lugia than the previous one.
Total.
1 more? Okay. And then support accounts largely the same. Less trainers, no collapse stadium, and just 1 Luminion V. So Luminion there if you need it, and then if it's there, it's there apparently. We've just settled on that. So going for more consistency, more energy, which I don't mind, but the games where you do have to use Luminion are probably going to cost you. So very interesting. All right, let's move on from Tournament of Doom. We're going to move on to our next tournament, Pokemon Battle Park. This one is less good for us as far as we like to look at it.
This is a brutal one because it's all stall every day of the week. I imagine that top 4 game, which was stall versus stall, would have been a real ripper.
Was it stall? Was it stall versus stall? Oh,
it was stall v stall in top 4, so that was a fun 75 minutes. But I want to talk about Charizard. I want to talk about Charizard again.
Is it more ghastly?
It happened again. This technology. There's a ghastly Gengar
No.
in this one too.
Oh my
There's
god.
a ghastly Gengar.
It's a
in
different
this.
person too. These
I know.
they're out of control. 2 Rotom V as well is spicy, rather than just
It
playing
is.
like a Lumo or something.
And do you know what the worst part is?
Lost a stall.
That Charizard player was on the wrong side of the bracket.
Oh,
The stall was on the
man.
other side,
that's-
so he didn't have a chance to do it.
and took the Elder Lost
Oh,
Zone box.
man.
Yeah. Okay.
But ultimately, I'm looking back at the records, and this Charizard player with Ghastly plays stall twice, beats stall twice. So you certainly
sense.
cannot complain about that. The tech works.
Rewarded. Yeah, you'll have to see it. I think anytime like you flip over a Snorlax, and then if your opponent flips over a Ghastly, you're like, oh, for Christ's sake, like, come
Yeah,
on,
oh my
man.
god!
You
What is
gotta be
going on?
kidding me. Like,
What is this?
who are
stupid
these
card? We
people?
didn't know it existed.
They're
until
so
15 minutes ago.
spicy. I can barely eat white
There's a
bread.
chance that they prize the Gengar.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
But not in
there's
those
a
two.
chance.
Not in those 2 sets. They didn't.
They have to prize it twice.
All right, we have a
Otherwise
substitute
it's
here.
over.
I want to see what's behind door number 1, the other category. It's Pidgeot
It
control.
is more. It's more stall.
It's
just
Pidgeot
a
control.
different-
This is Jordan's fave. Oh, Jigglypuff. I have no idea what that Jigglypuff does. I've never seen
Hey,
this.
It's got the Wigglytuff EX to
Oh, okay. It's going into the Wigglytuff, yeah.
have a big old super fat Wigglytuff EX that you just chuck in the active.
Chuck a mist energy on it, and then you can just Cherenza after it takes like 7 hits. Yeah, okay. That's different. Don't mind it. Can also the Jigglypuff also searches for supporter cards, so it's not a bad starter either. That's some new technology from Pidgeot control. Morwa, Luxray, Buffalon. Put energy from the active into the lost zone. 3 energy is a steep cost. I wonder if they...
It's not. Wait, let me check the list real quick. Which one is it?
The Lost Origins one, it has for 3 colors. Lost Headbutt does 50.
No, sorry. Which stall list are we looking at?
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird from
All right, let me get it
Pokemon
up
Battle
real
Park.
quick.
It costs 3 energy.
Battle-
How are they powering this up?
Well, they've got double
That's,
turbos and stuff, so
It's still
Are
2
they playing
attachments.
Giovanni's Charisma?
Giovanni's
Nope.
Charisma, no. They've got
Okay, that's
they've
how I
got
was-
Giacomos and no Crushing Hammers and no Giovanni's, no Team Star Grunt or
So
Team
the
Star
strat
Cheer.
that I was looking at was that you Giovanni's, which removes an energy from them and allows you to attach an energy from your hand. So you use that to power up the flight in one turn, and then you effectively removing 2 energy in one turn.
Well, let's hopefully Larry Bird doesn't hear you, because that's a good idea for a strategy I'd rather not play against myself. But
I've
this
seen
is...
someone else's list do that combo before.
okay. Yeah, and we got some pretty stock standard stuff going on here. We've got Thornton, Sharon's, Giacomo. Yep. Mist Energy to protect that Wigglytuff. More double turbos, so the Wigglytuff probably attacks quite often. It's actually not playing the Radzard in this list. Just the Chi-Yu EX to mill, but this isn't the option to attack with Radzard toward the end game. I suppose with Roaring Moon shifting away from the EX heavy build, the Charizard gets less mileage into the field as it is now.
Yeah, I don't think the Radzard's super important.
Yeah. It's just something I saw a lot, so I found it interesting that it was missing. We've got, surprisingly enough, even though there was a lot of hype in our local area about this deck, but Future Hands, this is the first time we've seen Future Hands since Fukuoka in like its top 14. I think got 14th at that tournament. This is the first time since then that we've seen this deck perform. Have we got any new technology? We've got 2 grass energy and a leaves.
This is playing the reboot pod rather than another A-spec card to try and give your Iron Crown and your Iron Leaves an opportunity to attack.
Yep.
Because obviously Twin Shottles is pretty solid, or Shotels, or however you pronounce it. It's a solid attack, and Iron Leaves obviously gives you a really strong attack into Charizard, so that seems pretty solid there. And it also means that you give yourself a chance to power up Iron Hands without having to necessarily have heavy batons all the time, so you can be a little bit more like flexible with your future booster energy capsules and your attachments.
Yeah.
So definitely an interesting choice. I do like the twin shottles into being able to then Iron Hands something with Ampy very much that might have been out of reach before. That's always a good choice.
Yep, and you can see that they're playing something we've been begging for on this podcast, which is 4 crowns and a super rod. So if an ancient box deck starts countercatcher killing your iron crowns, you're not going to lose instantly to a roaring moon with an ancient booster energy capsule on it, because you can still amp that with your keeping your iron crowns in play. So I'm glad to see that technology come in. Obviously, the deck has started to struggle with the Charizard matchup past the mid-game, where the Charizards have got too much HP and they've run out of baby Pokemon to target down with the Iron Hands. So the Iron Leafs technology has made its way into the deck. Surprisingly enough, we saw it a lot early, but it seems like the Iron Boulder and the Fighting Energy have made its way out of this list now. So maybe the metagame has settled in a place where that's not necessary anymore.
I mean, if you don't need to hit the
mostly
hands,
the mirror, I think. And if the deck hasn't been doing that well recently, then it's less important to tech for mirror.
Yep, that's fair.
I do really like the Iron Bundle as well, especially with the Super Rod. Just gives you another little switch option there to take knockouts on benched Pokemon that maybe your opponent's trying to hide from you.
Yeah,
especially since this isn't playing Prime Catcher, so you really need to make sure you're targeting down the Pokemon you need to.
Yeah, and you're not losing to like defensive options like a Vulpix type or the Noivern EX that we saw making its way into some control lists. So you definitely don't want to get caught by that. So yeah, good to see that having a showing. Otherwise, we've got a Lost Zone box, which I think is also something that we haven't seen pop up until right now.
Yeah, and this is a really cool one because it's got a tech card that Blake, you and I were talking about earlier. I think Jordan, you might have been in this conversation as well. The Hooper EX.
Hooper. Good old Hooper. This card's been around for a little bit. It's a fighting Terra type. It's a basic, attacks off Dark Energy instead of fighting. Energy Crush 50 times the number of energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Really good into Lugia, really good into Iron Hands, for obvious reasons, both the fighting type and the amount of energy that's represented on both of their boards. Obviously, Lugia has a bit more control over how much energy they try to put on the field to leave you weak to Hooper, especially because it's fighting. You got resistance on your 2 prize Pokemon in Lugia, so if you just leave the double turbos off, you can leave it out of range if you're playing smart, but if you don't know to expect the Hooper, then you can't play around the Hooper.
And
you go, John. So the interesting thing is that looking at their matches, they played against 3 Lugias, or technically they played against 2 Lugias, but 1 Lugia they hit twice in the tournament. They beat the first one, and then the second one they lost to the first time and then beat the second time. And there's a pretty funny interaction with the Hooper in regards to how the rest of the deck plays, because we mentioned earlier that Greninja into Sableye is countered by putting Mist Energies on your Archeopses, but Mist Energies on your Archeopses then plays into the Hooper EX being out of one-shot Lugia.
Yeah, but it's not like you're desperately trying to find ways to knock out Lugias with this deck, because you do play Raikou V still, and the deck also does play Iron Hands. Iron Hands obviously the more expensive one, and not the ideal attacker into Lugia. You're more looking to attack into Chinchinos with the Iron Hands in that matchup. So yeah, there's a whole bevy of attackers here that each have a place. We've got the Roaring Moon EX, which you see in the Paradox box towards the end of the previous format. Still the 1 Sableye, 1 Cramorant. The Iron Bundle, which has become a mainstay in decks that get locked out by certain things, and also just to make sure that you're attacking the right thing every turn when you can't boss as often as you'd like. So
yeah, the thing that I find crazy about this Lost Box deck is that it's only got 1 Psychic Energy. It's got 1 Sableye, it's got 1 Psychic Energy, and that I know that you might not need the Sableye that much, because by the time you've got that many cards in the Lost Zone, maybe there aren't that many Sableye targets, but it just feels wrong. It just feels wrong to have 1 card to give you the chance to use your best attacker. Pretty crazy.
This stage, a lot of the time, it feels like Sableye's inclusion in lists is just to make sure you can make your opponent bench Jirachi and have 1 more bench spot taken up. You obviously the decks have adapted to not relying on winning through Sableye because of cards like Jirachi. So now you just have to keep playing it and a way to attack with it, just that they'll respect it and put down the Jirachi.
Yeah,
give
yeah.
yourself more targets for your Iron Hands to knock out with amp you very much. But some pretty stock standard stuff. Prime Catcher obviously being the ace spec of choice here. Nothing too much to argue about here. We've got Artisan, lots of one-offs. This has become a very one-off heavy deck post-rotation. But it's working. You know, it got all the way to
One-offs
second.
with flower selecting, no.
One-offs with flower selecting. That'll never let you down, especially not into stall.
Yeah, I can't see that being a massive issue, no.
Yep. Let's take a brief look at the stall that won the whole thing before we move on. It's Snorlax. There's 4 of those. Cool. Yep. 2 Rotoms. No worries. Sure. Mimikyu, Chiyu. The Mantine. That's new. That's basically the Echo Horn replacement. You put a basic Pokemon from either player's discard pile onto their bench. So I suppose you could even use it to get yourself a spare Snorlax if you wanted to for some reason. I don't know.
You're just gonna prize the fire energy and then half your deck doesn't do anything.
Well, here's the thing. There's got to have been, because this one ended up winning, right, in that stall mirror. I don't know how the stall mirror went down, but like how that must be the most tedious experience of one's life. Like that's just
Have you ever played a stall mirror, Mitch?
I've never played stall in my life and never intend on playing stall.
The
so
idea
no.
of it
no.
is enough to give
Like
me the idea of it gives me a headache, and so
Yeah.
I resolved to never do it.
I won't be doing that.
If it's-
I'm gonna make you play a stall mirror with me in testing for perf. Not because I
Sure.
want to play it, but just because it'll be hilarious.
All right, sounds great.
I might record that
very
for some
much
side
looking forward to
content
it.
for some of the social
Yeah.
media. It's just a
Oh
bunch.
my
It's just
god.
30 straight minutes of Mitch
What
complaining
if,
about
what if
stall.
it's an awakening for Mitch and Mitch ends up loving it?
No. it
Yeah,
won't
I'd bet a
happen.
lot of money that won't happen.
Yeah.
We see the return of like Temple of Sinnoh in heavy counts in the Snorlax stall because Jet Energy is making its way back around with Lugia in format. So that obviously had a role to play in their success over the tournament. I feel like, the loss, especially against the Lost Zone decks, which a lot of their switch outs revolve around Jet Energy. But yeah,
There's nothing else to say here.
yeah,
There's
we've spoken at length about our disdain for stall, and so we'll move on from doing any more. Oh look, so the next
Here it is
tournament,
again. Get a bloody
Pidgeot
let's go
Control.
again. Another one. Hooray.
8th of Snorlax stall. We've talked about that. We'll move on. Luigi, what have you got for us? Anything special? No? That's largely similar to the one that won the first tournament, or might even be the same person.
Seems like they're all playing 4-3 Chinchino now, which I think is a pretty good adaptation.
Yeah, I like it. More consistent.
This one's playing Luxray. That's not super common at the moment, right?
Luxray V. Oh, reversal Luxray. Oh, that's very cool. That seems like it's a mirror tech. Potentially to kill
Pidgeot
other
as well.
Lugias.
Pidgeot's around a bunch.
Yeah.
I'm so lost. Which tournament are we looking at here?
Card Cavern, Series 3.
Yeah. And who's got the
Vaitner.
Here he is. Found him.
And then they've got the one of Reversal Energy to go onto the Luxray with Swelling Flash. So if you're behind, you can put this down without needing the Luxio Shanks. There it is.
Yep.
It was a different letter at the start of the evolution chain, so I had to think a second on it. But yeah, Wild Charge, very efficient into those Lightning Weak Pokemon, one-shotting all of those.
That might be the way that it's trying to beat Charizard Pidgeot, maybe, is by using the single prize to take 2 prizes.
It definitely takes a bigger win against Charizard than I think it would typically do. It means you have to use one less Chinchino to take a big knockout.
Well, it's also a way that you can attack if you don't have access to Chinchino or you don't have enough Archeopters in play. You can. This just always takes 2 prizes.
That's true. Perhaps your strategy against Lugia wouldn't work against this build. The return of Messagoza, actually. That's the first I've seen of Messagoza post-rotation. It's Aroma, except you can have a bad result with Messagoza, but it's still in format. It's still good in Lugia. They just need the deck slots. So obviously there's some
What
support.
stadium are they usually playing besides Collapse Stadium? There was another one, right?
It was just Collapsed. It was Collapsed or Messagoza in the past, I feel like.
No, I mean like now, like other.
Now
it's
pretty much only been 1 to 2 copies of Collapsed has been the standard for them. But yeah, I like to see the adaptation with Lugia. That's good to see. Another Lost Tina, so they're getting results. It's coming around. It's still good. We got
it's one of the best decks into stall.
Yeah. And with a field like this, it seems like there's some good eating. Let's see. We've got. Oh, it looks like they they might have beat the person who won the whole thing in Swiss. No, different. There was 2 Pidgeot controls. My mistake. Why did I think we lived in a good world where there was only 1 Pidgeot control? There's multiples. He just took care of one and made him drop. Good man. I don't know who this Japanese player is, but they did a good thing, and they made a Snorlax Pidgeot player drop by beating them in round 4. So kudos to you. If we go back, we've got a Lost Box Charizard, actually. So not Barrel, not Pidgeot. Sablezard. Oh, it's Sablezard, not Lost Zone Charizard. Okay. They use the same icon, so it threw me off. Sablezard, almost more out of the realm of possibility than Lost Zone Charizard, I feel like, nowadays.
No, Sablezard. This Sablezard deck is cool. It's got lots of cool things. It's
still one Sableye, one Redzard. Like, how is it even called Sablezard?
It's got Iron Hands.
It's got a Iron Hands. It's got a Ditto. It's got a Technical Machine Crisis Punch.
It's got Redzard and Crisis Punch. Crisis Punch was meant to destroy Radiant Zard, not join them.
This deck is designed to put your opponent down to 2 prizes, then Radzard, then Technical Machine Crisis Punch, and win the game. That's what you're doing. That's your plan.
So your Iron Hands for 2, your Radzard for 2. Well, because Clara rotated, Jordan. We can't do that anymore.
That's just easier to get my TM Crisis Punch.
Yep, we're going to hold on to that TM for the entire game.
Wait,
definitely not Lost Zone.
Is the Articuno that makes Water types stronger still legal?
Yeah, Pogo.
No. Is it?
It's Pogo.
Yeah, I think it is. So, like, does that work with Crisis Punch?
On the Cramorant, yeah. If it was on the Cramorant, it would.
It's pretty funny.
Should do.
And or the Radzard if you wanted to use the Moltres.
That's so funny. Imagine using Crisis Punch on Radzard because you need the 30 extra damage and you don't have, like, Defiance Ban.
I mean, Radzard makes Crisis Punch free as well because she makes it cheaper.
Yep.
So wait, is it triple colorless or is it got colors?
It's triple colorless on the on the Crisis Punch. So it works.
Oh wait, so you can use Radzard with Crisis Punch once for free once they've taken 3 prizes.
Radzard can attack twice in a row because of Crisis Punch, because it says it can't use Combustion Blast twice, not it can't attack. So it can Combustion Blast into Crisis Punch.
Or it can Crisis Punch into Combustion Blast. Both acceptable.
Well, they have to be on one prize card, so it's unlikely that it happen in that order. But yeah,
like,
still
that's
cool.
one of the big strats that people use against Radzard in like top level play. It is
strand it in the active,
after it attacks, and then like Gust kill something, or like Iono stall it in the active for a turn.
Yeah, or snipe around it. Snipe around it with stuff really like Screamtail with Gardevoir in the past.
I have never even considered the synergy between Radzard and Crisis Punch before.
That's really funny because I used to think they were enemies and not siblings.
They're friends.
They're friends.
They're buds.
They're best buds. Buddies.
But they couldn't beat their finals opponent because their finals opponent rudely didn't take any prize cards. Just sat there and controlled them the whole time.
Yep,
that's pretty rude.
Their finals opponent decided they wanted to play a different trading card game to them. So,
what are they playing a Daisy's Help in here for?
Daisy's Help.
Look at your prizes. What the heck?
Oh, that's the tech, Jordan.
So
I was trying to find it right because I played against a stall on ladder, and they played a copy of Arc Phone, and I had no idea how they were going to get it to work. But I didn't realize Daisy's Help got you to look at your prize cards. So it's mini Peonia.
Sold one half of the combo.
So you get to look at every prize card, but you don't get to take 3. Rather than taking 3 randomly and taking good cards out.
One specifically.
One specific good card out with that combo.
Does it go to top of deck?
Yeah, top of deck. Yep.
It'd be so much better if you got to use the Arc Phone first and then Daisy into the card.
Right.
We don't want that to happen. That sounds like a bad idea to me, Jordan. I don't like that at all.
That's so funny that there's a Peonia replacement.
But this deck's also playing the Luxray and the Reversal Energy, and it's got the Radzard, and it's oh god.
This isn't even a control deck. This is just I'm gonna take prizes and attack every
time.
Yeah.
It's the one that controls you until the opponent gives up on the fact that they're gonna win by attacking, and then after that happens, the Radzard and the Luxray start coming down.
I feel physically.
So this is more like the one from Goiania that
Mitch,
had
like
the
this
Radzard.
deck, trust me.
This
Well, I
is
mean,
more
at
fun
least-
to play than you'd think.
At least I can use the logic of I'm taking prize cards. I'm going to win by taking prize cards.
You will eventually
I
win
just
by
have to
taking
be-
prize cards and not from sending them to a mental institution.
I just have to be exceptionally rude and heartless for about 40 minutes, and then I'll take my prizes.
And then take them out for a free dinner, and then I'm so sorry. It's going to be an expensive tournament.
It's like, I'm sorry,
And you
mate.
have
Here we go.
And you have to buy a Daisy's help from someone.
Yeah, you have to figure
Well,
out where to get Daisy's
I have
help.
to sift through my my Pokemon 151 bulk to try and find a copy.
Yeah,
of
get me some
Daisy's
Pidgeys
help.
while you're there, because I did not get any of those whatsoever, and the only
this-
ones I can get are shiny, and they cost too much.
God.
Is this meant to be Daisy, as in Gen 1 rival sister Daisy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
not Luigi's girlfriend's Daisy. We're not doing any
Ah,
crossovers here.
Yeah.
But that'll
Never
do it
seen
for
Luigi play this card.
that'll do it for this tournament. We'll move on to our last tournament here, the couch. We've got a much better top 8 for us. We've got something we've been looking at recently in the form of Ancient Box. We're trying to make Ancient Box work at the moment. This one is a pretty standard option going... Oh, they really dislike the Iron Hands EX because they've gone doubly hard into the Slitherwing tech that I've been talking about.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a big choice.
Only the 2 Flutter Mane, 1 Great Tusk, which we like to see as an alternate win condition against other aggressive decks, and then Full Moon 3 Cridon. We got the 1 Boss, which we've had as ideas. We've got the drum, Defiance Band, over Max Bolt, so they can still play the drum, and then
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
4 Pokegears, 2 Trekking Shoes, 2 Counter Catcher, and Artisan, not Pokestop. And
Trekking
then-
Shoes is another card that I haven't thought about trying yet in this deck. That's pretty good, actually.
I think that was in a lot of people's first drafts, and then when people tried to make it more consistent,
Right.
a lot of people cut
All the
all of that
shoes,
out,
yeah.
all of the shoes out, and put in like heavy artisan count and more ball search and stuff like that. But this is sort of like the
That
best
makes
of both
sense.
worlds. This doesn't play any Ultra Balls, or it does play the Superior, but no Ultra Balls.
You have to play the Superior, I think. But
Yeah.
no Ultra Balls.
But this is playing a very heavy energy count. We've only been playing like 8 to 9 energy, and this is playing 11. 6 Dark, 4 Fighting, and a Jet.
4 fighting is so many for Koraidon.
Yeah, I think it's just because of the addition of the
Oh,
the
you
two
have to.
Slitherwing.
You need it for Slitherwing, right? It's double
Yeah.
fighting, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay,
It is
that makes
it is
more
double
sense.
fighting. It
I
means you
forgot
can
about
consistently pull off attacks with Slitherwing into Iron Hands, EXs, and Arceus Vs, I suppose, if that comes up as well. But yeah, good to see some
Does it do enough to Arceus?
to a baby.
Oh, a V, yes.
Yeah, to a V, but not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
V
yeah.
star. We've also got 2 of the future hands making their way into top 8 this time around. These ones are a lot more simple. 4 hands, 4 crowns, 2 Miraidon, and a Mew. 2 gift, 12 lightning, and a psychic. So the psychic for so they can do the Iron Showtell like I was talking about against Stool. 3 generator, 3 switch. The reboot pod still interesting.
Yep.
I feel like that's strong still, especially if you're not playing the leaves. I don't see reboot pod as a really good option, but I haven't tested it enough to be correct on that statement. So
Yeah.
I'll leave
Prime
it
Catcher
there.
is so good in the deck.
Prime
Oh, the
Catcher-
one that the one that won. Wait, did it win?
The one that came
No,
second.
it got second. Yeah, the one that came second plays Prime Catcher.
Yeah. So the one that came second is a list that is closer to the list that most people would have been testing, where
Yeah.
it's just playing the Miraidon on the hands and the crown. It might have 1 copy of Psychic Energy, like this one does.
Yep, no
and it
gift
just
energies like
goes-
the other one.
Yep, it just goes, okay, I'm strong enough. I've got Mew EX to draw in the mid to late game. I've got thick support accounts. I've got all the tools. I've got everything that I need. I just need to attack every turn with Iron Hands. So it's a pretty kind of default situation to find yourself in. No Super Rod, card that I'd kind of like to see, especially with 4 Arven. But, when you don't have things like the Iron Bundle or all these extra tech attackers, maybe you don't need it.
Yeah.
You
That-
can also attack with the Mew EX with heavy baton, alright?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The only losses on the day were obviously in the finals to Charizard. The mirror against, I believe, the person who might have also been in top 8. No, it was a different one. Lots of future hands in this tournament. And then also to an Arctina. So
Interesting.
yeah,
That's a lot of
and
HP, so
to the
makes
person
sense.
who came third was the loss. So
Oh, there you go.
Arctina still
Pretty good.
showing
Your
up.
only losses, so it's a first and third place, pretty much.
3-3 barrel on in this Arctina. They love the consistency here. Still the 2 Aries. Pokemon League headquarters making a showing. and we got Choice Belt and Max Belt as offensive options for the Ace specs as well.
Well, League Headquarters is also probably really good against Future Box.
Yeah,
right?
really good into Future Hands and Ancient Box. Very annoying because they don't. Only like the Pokestop builds of Ancient Box tend to play like a really high count. The Artisan ones only play like 1 to 2. So yeah, a League HQ could stick for a long time against that deck and make it a menace. So that Sada plus attach isn't enough to get to string attackers together, which is problematic for the deck. And then there's 2 Lost Zone Tina and an Arc Tina to round out this top 8. Apart from the winner, we'll take a quick look at these. Nothing too spicy here, more of the same. But you know, if it works,
I like how the Lost Tina's player's name is I Love Movie Max.
Yeah, and then we have literal Lost Tina here.
Did we mention that the Charizard was playing the Gengar again? Did we mention that?
We have not mentioned that. Oh my god, it's playing the Gengar. Absolutely.
And you guys thought those 2 Gengar guys were friends earlier.
Hey, listen,
they probably no idea.
Apparently, it's just online tech. It must be that the first tournament happened. There was 2 people who were friends who played the Gengar tech, and now these people have seen the Gengar tech worked. They beat 2 stall because of Gengar. I'm putting it in. Like, this has to have been what happened.
Either that, or there's been some secret like Twitter message groups that we've not been a part of.
Or maybe it's an American thing.
Maybe it is. But like literally, I will say this much: until we started this podcast, I'd never considered Charizard with this Gengar.
I literally mentioned the Gengar earlier today.
He did.
I wasn't.
He might have been away at that time.
But regardless,
I hadn't heard of it either. I just mentioned it because I was like, oh yeah, you can do that. It's when I was talking about building like a weird Charizard list. I was like, you can play Gengar as well as another option.
Well, this is the thing, right? Now, this is the card that everyone's going to be playing. So every time you're playing Charizard, you're playing Gengar now, apparently.
Oh man, if we could just establish a precedent of all the Charizards playing the 101 Gengar line, and then scare all of the Snorlax people from bringing it to Perth and other future tournaments, and then it's like, great, I don't have to play it, and I get to benefit from still being scared away.
I don't have to. I can play 2 extra cards instead of the Ghastly.
Exactly.
I mean, the Gengar's not terrible anyway, though, right? Because like, obviously, Charizard's not naturally playing switches most of the time anyway. And yes, it already has Pidgeot as a pivot, but like being able to switch your Red Zard out of the active is pretty good.
Yeah, just to be able to attack with Combustion Blast multiple turns in a row.
It also means opening Zard doesn't suck anymore.
Yeah. It would have been better if this was a tech that was more common pre-rotation, because it would mean you'd always get to pivot from Celebration's Mew every turn and not have to worry about wasting fire energies all the time. So that would have been neat, but very cool technology. Any technology that deals with Stallers technology, we approve here on the Trainers Mail podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to worry where our political standings are. We are very pro anything not stall.
I'm pro playing Pokemon.
We're pro anti-stall. Pro aggro, anti-stall. So lots of hands, lots of Ancient Box. We love to see it. And
so yeah, across the board, it's been these 5 tournaments have kind of they've shown me a lot about the way that the format is going to pan out.
Gengar is real.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's just an online thing. I don't know. But the thing that I'm learning is something that I'd already kind of expected. That stall is very, very real, and
it's
must
scary.
respect it. You must respect it in this format. There is no option. And beyond that, the rest of the field is very, very broad. There's lots of good decks that are all pretty equally spread out. And
like close to 10 decks that are viable to win tournaments, which is crazy.
And it seems like each of them have their own, there's a couple of, like, one deck will have 2 good matchups, 3 bad matchups, and the rest pretty 50-50, and it seems pretty similar, like, with every deck, right?
It's like we talked about on a previous podcast, this is, like, as much stall as there is around, there's still the most healthy format we've ever seen, because, like, if you're a stall player and stall's not good, then you don't like the format, right? So for everyone, there is something at the moment in this metagame, which is, it's great for the trading card game, because everyone has something they like, and everything's equally viable at the moment, it feels like. If you're a Giratina enjoyer, the rotation didn't hurt you. There's 2 different flavors of it that you can invest in, Arceus or Lost Zone. If you're a Lost Zone enjoyer, Tina and Lost Zone Box are still valid. There are different ways to play
What
Iron
if you're
Hands
a
outside of.
Guardian enjoyer?
If you're a Guardian enjoyer, then
brother, see you later.
Aw.
let's just wait patiently and see if they release another busted psychic type to accelerate to, and then
It's fine.
it can come
I'll
back.
break Bannet.
Yeah. Just break Bannet with Salvatore, Jordan. You'll go ahead and work on that, and we'll meet up again next week on the podcast to catch in, to check
Sounds
in on
good.
that. But that will do it here for the Trainers Mail podcast. Bit of a short one this week, left a little bit late on the record, and also not too much has happened between this week and the last week in terms of new stuff to talk about. Just some.
We're in that awkward period where we're waiting for
we're waiting for the set to be
recent-
legal.
Yeah, we're waiting for the set to be legal, but also we've still got Vancouver regionals that are happening as we're recording the video. So
Yeah, very
it's
much
kind
so.
of kind of sketchy that way.
But thanks to Mitch and Jordan for joining me here again for another episode of the Trainers Mail podcast.
Oh, you're so welcome.
No worries.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.